Welcome to Sigest, your fortnightly serving of digestible science from plant and food research.
Kia ora, I'm Dion Mundy and thank you for joining us for another Science Life for Me Sigest session. Today, Rebecca Campbell is joining us in Tasman to talk about her time with plant and food research and her special focus of her recent fellowship. I've known Rebecca for a few years now, always very keen to hear what she's been doing in the region, nationally or even internationally, and how that impacts both science and the growers. If we have time, we'll talk to Rebecca about her work-life balance and also mentoring early career researchers. So Rebecca, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at PFR?
Kia ora, Dion. Yeah, my name's Rebecca Campbell. I am based at the Motueka site in plant and food research in the pathology team. So I'm part of the plant pathogen environment pathology group. Normally, my day-to-day, I spend quite a bit of time on the computer these days, doing a lot of writing and data analysis. But all our work is a lot of field work, connections with the growers, lab work, a wide variety of activities. And I have strong connections with the ecology and also geospatial expertise within the company. Geospatial analytics, or some people call it geographic information systems or Geoinformatics, and it's really looking at spatial aspects of data. So in the most basic sense, cartography, drawing maps. More complicated, you can do statistical analyses or mathematical analyses for spread dynamics or movement in landscapes, but it's all about where things are, so in space.
So tracking things in time and space?
Yep, pretty much.
Cool. So in a typical day, would you be spending most of your time working alone or as part of a team?
Yeah, so our pathology team at Motueka, there's 4 of us at the moment. So we've got myself as a senior scientist, 2 research associates and a technician. And we also work really closely with the entomology team here as well, so sort of the bioprotection for Motueka. We work really closely with the other teams on site, so we have a lot of breeders in all different crops, so berries, kiwi fruit, so that's KBC and PFR, apples, pears, hops, and it's a really nice sort of community at our site where we do work closely with those teams and discussions, collaborations, inspiration, just helping out, sharing gear and that sort of thing.
And how did you end up with PFR in Tasman?
My background, I did ecology at Canterbury University in Christchurch. So I did my PhD in freshwater ecology and stream invertebrates and how they move in the landscape. And when I finished that, I actually started having my family. So my daughter was little. We decided to move to Nelson. That's where my husband is from. And I thought, oh, well, I'll have some time off with the kids. I'll probably work for somewhere like Hawthorn because of my freshwater background. When I was ready to go back to part-time work, I looked for jobs, and in the Nelson Motueka area, there's not that many science jobs, and there was a technician position part-time at Plant and Food. I thought, well, it's something new, something different, but I'll give it a go, and that's when I got employed at Plant and Food. So big learning curve into pathology, but a heap of the ecology background is really transferable, and feeling really at home now after several years of being in pathology, particularly in that epidemiology space, so really the ecology of disease.
And it's obviously an area that I feel comfortable in too, because my degree was ecophysiology, so I think it's a great way to get into pathology, but I might be a bit biased.
I also thought, because of my entomology background, I would probably drift entomology ways, and it's really nice having the entomologists on site and working closely with them. And actually one of our staff members does quite a lot of the entomology work alongside the pathology work. So there's lots of interactions there, lots of opportunities to bring that multidisciplinary background together to do cool science.
Yeah. And obviously in the last little while, part of your focus on your science has been your fellowship. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was, the actual fellowship itself, and what you did during it.
It was a Whitinga Mai o Te Rā fellowship, or Whitinga fellowship, run through MB and the Royal Society. I think they were created as sort of extra fellowships around that COVID time because there were a lot of, I guess, postdoc or early career researchers that weren't able to get the overseas postdoc experience. So I was really lucky to be able to be awarded one of them, and it ran for 2 years and recently finished. The topic of my fellowship was high-resolution epidemiological models for plant protection, so plant disease modelling. And that was a really great opportunity for me to consolidate some of those ecological modelling skills with pathology and epidemiology and really get extra expertise and extra time to spend upskilling and diving deeper into those epidemiological parameters and variables and ways of modelling that to understand the systems.
And obviously at that time, epidemiology in general was a hot topic. So were there plenty of people that were available to talk to and to collaborate with?
Yeah, so one of the nice things from COVID is that people started talking about epidemiology as a household word, which it wasn't that case beforehand. And also like that biosecurity and, infection risk and all those factors. And it's quite nice to be able to explain things with a reference point that other people have more familiarity with. I guess one of the big benefits from the fellowship was there was actually a fair amount of travel money available. So I got to travel to collaborate and get to some of those big international workshops and conferences because there's not many plant disease modelling people in New Zealand, and it was really nice to be able to reach out to those international people with completely different experiences. And one thing that was really special is when I went to these conferences and workshops is actually how well we fit from New Zealand. You see the local views and you think, yep, that's good science. But then when you go internationally and you still go, yep, that's good science and we fit here and we can collaborate with these people in a really meaningful way, then it made me quite proud to have come from where we come from in New Zealand.
And so the type of modelling that you were doing, can you give us some examples? What does that mean for, say, a grower here in New Zealand because of what you've done?
Yeah, so there's obviously quite a lot of different types of modelling and different approaches to modelling. And I guess sometimes it gets bandied about a bit of, I do modelling. And really, a model is just a simplification of anything in the world. So actually, most of what we do is some form of model. So you have your conceptual models, obviously your statistical models, mathematical models, a whole range of that and everything in between and combinations of that. So during my fellowship, I explored a few different styles or approaches with a particular focus on epidemic development, importance of the microclimate to disease development, and also that spatial structure or that spatial spread of diseases, because we know that they disperse through environments and there's not many people who work on that in New Zealand, so there's lots of opportunities there. So one part of the modelling that I did was really focusing on that biological relationship between the climatic variables or weather variables, so a response of a pathogen to temperature or moisture and how that affects your infection risk. So using those mechanisms of part of that disease cycle, your infection process, your latent period, which is when you're infected but it's not showing symptoms, and those reinfection cycles with those weather variables. The other main type of modelling that I explored was, some people call it compartmental modelling, so mathematical modelling where you've compartmented up your population. So this is the style that you probably would have seen with the COVID modellers, where you have a susceptible population and through a mathematical equation, a number of them move into your infected population compartment and then you're recovered. Or in plant diseases, usually they don't recover. They usually get removed, maybe with a chainsaw if you like Dion. But yeah, so you're looking at these populations and how they change through time with a dynamic mathematical system.
So by doing this modelling, you're able to make predictions. Was part of the fellowship to then test some of those predictions, or just to be able to develop better predictions for later use?
Yeah, so here in Motueka we work really closely with the growers, particularly the apple growers. That's our main focus at the moment. I think it is really important to think about that purpose of the modelling. So within my fellowship it was more exploring the potential, but now the next step will be making that really applicable to what the grower can use for decision making on orchard. So for example, one of my case studies was European canker in apple. It really focuses in hot spots, so it spreads relatively slowly from a hotspot point because it's rain splash dispersed, so it's sort of a stepwise progression. So it's really hard for growers to control the disease because it gets into the woody tissue. You can't just spray a chemical on it. It doesn't get rid of it. And so what they do is they spend a lot of money and resource on cutting it out manually, so chainsaws, pruning saws, cutting out the diseased tissue, disposing of that. But when you have labour shortages, so we had that during the COVID times, and then you have also weather patterns that are really conducive to disease risk. So if it's raining a lot at the wrong times, or the right times for the pathogen. And so we've had a really big increase in the canker problems, but not much resources in the people resources. It's really hard for those growers to get on top of it. So I think one of the key next steps is tweaking those models so that it can give information to the grower to say, actually, your priority is this location at this time. The rest of it can wait, so focus your effort and your cost into, say, this half of your block. And then later on you can pick up the other one. So looking at where that highest risk is to get the better bang for your buck.
Better bang, yeah. Cool. It's always nice to see some practical outcomes to science. And obviously this was different to your normal work life. What were the aspects about the fellowship that you really enjoyed?
The fellowship really gave me a chance to, I guess, focus on my development and those deeper development of those scientific ideas. So quite often in our team we end up with a lot of different projects, often driven by industry needs or just where that funding is coming from. So you've got a particular purpose and a particular focus. Often it's a chunk of your time. Whereas in the fellowship it was all of my time for 2 years on a purpose that I was passionate about. So yeah, it gives you just those different opportunities to really dig deep and follow those paths. Because every time we have a research project, you always have more questions that just are beyond the scope of that project. And I think in the fellowship it just means that when I had those questions, I could go, actually, I'll prioritise that. I will go and chase that extra question, because you have that freedom of having that time to really, I guess, indulge in the science.
And maybe be a little bit ahead of the immediate problem, looking at some of the longer term, if not solutions, at least some of those longer term questions. What are we going to need in 5 or 10 years' time? Is that the sort of thing that you were doing?
Yeah, and also just a bit more of that depth and breadth. So sometimes we know our stuff and we do it really well, but you do sometimes feel a little rushed and go, actually, I wanted to go down that rabbit hole and find out a little bit more. And then when you do add that breadth or have that chance to take a breath and add that breadth, you get different inspiration and different innovation because you can connect up different dots. So I think that was really valuable.
And you said that you got a chance to do some travel and to see how we fitted internationally. Did that allow to build some international relationships, some collaborations?
Yeah, I've got some really, exciting for me, new collaborations that I'm working on at the moment, just trying to get some funding proposals over the line to get that supported in a money terms. But yeah, so with particularly people in France and UK, Australia, different styles of modelling, and some of them more theoretical. And I think what I brought to the table or bring to that collaboration is we have a lot of that on the ground data to either validate or calibrate or support those ideas. So going out into those orchards, you get a completely different feeling as if you were sitting at your desk just modelling from the information someone else gave you. So I think that maybe they are more theoretically advanced in their disease modelling, but we are so much more practically connected to our growers.
From what I've seen in the field, when I've seen you and other members of the team interacting with the industry, you're very well received. Do you feel that the industries you work with here in New Zealand are receptive to the work that you do and therefore willing to give some of your ideas a go?
Generally, they're really supportive right from that, the grower or the orchard owner, all the way through to that industry body. They are quite keen to hear all the new ideas, the new approaches. They're always looking for those chances to get something new. They do sometimes ask for the silver bullet, which we don't often have. But yeah, generally really supportive. I guess the main limiting thing is that everyone is tight with money and resources, and so just making sure you've got that right, I guess, co-funding or support around there to really pick up what's the priorities at the moment.
And again, getting the best bang for the buck for the industry as well as for the researcher. So you're not just working here in the region, the work that you're doing has international significance. You're talking with the industry across not just this region, but across nationally, and giving presentations to industry bodies, those sorts of things?
Yep, so I recently presented at the New Zealand Plant Protection Society, so that's a conference that's more science directed, but there were industry representatives there. We have more of a grower drop-in session that we run from the Motueka site, just a once a month, where the growers come and we talk about canker. It's a bit of a Cankers Anonymous club where we can just share the problems, and it helps inspire our research and it helps them get connected to that research, so that flow through from what's practical on the ground to what's our newest science that we have and how do we connect that up.
And from what I've seen, that's one of those advantages of being in the region, being able to make those connections.
Yeah, and I think for all of my team, we get a buzz when someone comes in and asks us a question and we can be helpful. Or they come and ask us a question and, oh, look, there's something new and interesting, exciting that we haven't seen before. We get all excited about what they're quite miserable about.
Right. And obviously, as I said before, this has been a bit of a change from your normal. So what have your family thought about you doing the fellowship?
So taking on the fellowship meant that I went from 0.8 FTE to a full-time. And so I actually convinced my parents to move from Gisborne down to Nelson to take on some of the after-school child care duties, just to free me up, give me that option of that full-time work. And that was really amazing. Thanks, Mum and Dad. My children, I think they do enjoy me being nerdy, but they do hassle me about it. But I think they will be even more nerdy when they grow up.
And what was the best part of the fellowship and why?
I think, like I said before, just being able to focus on something that's really, for myself and my development, as well as being really cool science, having that time to actually really digest some of the new and cool science.
Excellent. So you're obviously passionate about what you do. You've completed your fellowship now. What is it that you're doing now that still helps you get up in the morning and come to work?
I think there's just so much potential. There's so much good science going on that can be really translated into something useful. At the moment, part of what drives me is completing some of these projects that have been going for a little while. So there's a few projects I've been involved with that are coming to a point where you're publishing papers or you've got something out of it where, the model can actually go to industry. And I think just having that push to complete for an output really, at the moment, really drives me. The other thing I love is just the people we have around us at the Motueka site, and also who we connect with off-site to other sites. My favourite type of conversations is that new, cool science. Okay, you've got an idea for a funding proposal, and you're brainstorming out those connections and where it can go and all that potential, and that keeps me happy.
So you do work at a regional site. Does that help with your work-life balance, being close to the beach and other fun things to do after work?
I think so. So I do spend quite a bit of time. We live quite close to the beach. We go to the beach. It gets me out to be a bit active. We've actually just started a running group here on site. I've only joined them once, but it's a lovely area to get out and go for a walk. I live on a small lifestyle block with, Dion knows because he also has goats, but I have a family of goats which I hand milk and have kids at this time of the year. And that's, having my children and my goats really makes me go home at the end of the work day and enjoy that time.
It's a bit hard to be obsessed with work when you're milking a goat or just even playing with them. So I know where that comes from. How does what we do at PFR and align with your personal interests? Is it a good fit? I know a little bit about your lifestyle block and things like that. So is part of working for Plant and Food because it aligns with your philosophies?
Yeah, I think I've always, even before I was working at Plant and Food, I've always seen that opportunity where, you have those really hands-on grassroots people, the growers, the managers or the people on the ground in any sort of farming system. And then you have all this stretchy science that, all that curiosity of what's happening, what can we do? And bringing those together is something that I really value. It is making that working smarter, not harder, making it a better environment for everyone, so you can get those economic or production gains, but you can also get the environmental or social gains alongside, like getting that balance with it. And I think that is something that I would do with or without PFR, because that people-land connection is really important to me.
So you can resonate with a smart green future together then?
Yeah, definitely together, definitely smart, definitely green.
That's cool. Whenever I come to the Rewalker site here, I always find it's a bit of a fruit bowl. There's always berries or apples or something here. Is that part of the appeal of working here, or?
It's definitely a bonus having essentially all you can eat blueberries in summer. And yes, when I'm packing my lunch in the morning to bring to work, I'm like, don't have to put the fruit in. I can just eat that ad lib at work. It is really nice to have that because I love fruit. And yeah, we do often have it available.
I suppose some people would take that regional aspect and say, well, how do you stay connected both nationally and internationally? Your fellowships helped with that, but do you have any particular strategies that you have on how you stay connected?
I think at the Motueka site, it comes naturally to a lot of us because you kind of just have to. But we do have all this technology that we can utilise, so you can be online, you can be on Teams, you can be in touch. And I think the main thing there is just don't be afraid to reach out. There's so many people who have answers to those questions, and there's so many lovely people who are happy to talk and inspire each other. And I guess you just have to trust yourself to just reach out to people you don't know, because maybe less people introduce you because you bump into them less. But there's so many opportunities to bump into people online now, or you get brought into meetings with various people.
Obviously, conferences are still important, and I know that you've recently been at the annual New Zealand Plant Protection Society conference. When I've seen you there, I've seen you interacting with emerging researchers, and that seems to be another passion. Tell me a bit about why. Why spend more of your time away from your family with young emerging researchers?
So the New Zealand Plant Protection Society is, so I'm on the executive committee and I have been for a few years. And I think it's a really nice way to, again, build those connections and also provide a place for people to come for information or resources or to build their connections. I think it's probably just my character, but also being a parent, I really see the opportunities in bringing these emerging researchers with us and, giving everyone that opportunity. And everyone has these amazing minds and just giving them the confidence to just go and give it a go, connect with people. And I'm quite proud that some people find that inspiring when they talk to me about having had kids and still being in that science community. And if I can help them, then I'm happy to have that conversation. And it's a feel good for both sides, I think.
I've always found the society is very nurturing of people, that the conference is always a nurturing environment, and that people such as yourself that invest a lot of time and energy in that make it so. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure our emerging researchers do. Are there any other things that you do outside your day job that are because of being at Plant and Food and what you do here in your local community or things like that?
My free time is often filled with child-related things. So, for example, I'm on the committee of the climbing club. I used to climb pre-kids, and then now my kids are old enough they want to climb, and to get the club going they need people, so I volunteer there. And then, running them around their sports and activities, and obviously their homework and all the other things that keep me well out of mischief.
Oh, well, it's good to know that you're not bored outside of work. But what next at work? What's your focus going to be now in the next year or so, having completed your fellowship?
One of my focuses is trying to get some publications out of all the previous work that we've been doing. So, and just to really be part of our pathology team. So when I was on the fellowship, it was quite an individual situation. And then coming back into those team projects that really feed off each other, the people in that team. So I think at the moment it's about finishing up and publishing, but also writing some new proposals for continuing on the modelling work. So to grow myself even more in that space, and also to grow others along with me. So, for example, we've got Luna has just completed her master's, also with epidemiological modelling, and there's really cool opportunities to grow in that space.
So again, helping others develop, helping yourself, helping the industry, and helping New Zealand by default, because these are the industries you're working with are primary industries that help New Zealand be fed and earn export dollars. You're obviously very passionate about what you do, you enjoy your work, and you've had this opportunity for the fellowship, and you've brought a lot back to Plant and Food with it. And we look forward to hearing about those publications, and I'm sure those field days with the industry as well that will come from it. So I've learned a lot today, and I hope our listeners have as well. Thank you very much for sharing with us today, Rebecca. And thank you out there for listening. Please check out our Sigest pages on the Plant and Food website. There you can find extra links to topics covered and see the full catalogue of our podcasts. Please subscribe or follow us on this channel via your favourite podcast provider, and help this channel grow by posting a review or rate this podcast. See you later. Look forward to catching up with you again soon.